actually hear them?
Yeah, that's a great question. I have not heard. I've given them the links, and I've asked, hey, has she been able to access them? And they've sent me, well, yeah, we assume so. She hasn't sent anything. Nice. So. All right. So, Emilio, first let's go through what you and Sydney have been talking about here. Let's go ahead and take this problem as if we're going to get the y by itself. Now, how many people on number 1 did that? How many people went ahead and got the y by itself? Emilio did, obviously. You went ahead and did it that way too? You didn't do the number 3 method? Okay. You got the y by itself? Sydney, you obviously did too. Well, Hope, what'd you do? The zeros? The zeros. Okay. I'm going to show you both for this one. Okay? All right. So, Emilio, what you did then is you took this problem here, and you got x plus 2y equals 4.
And I made it negative x.
You subtracted an x from both sides. So you get 2y equals what? Negative x. And that'd be a 1 in front. Plus 4. Then you divided everything by 2. And so you get y equals negative 1/2 x plus 2. So you got the y by itself. So Sydney, that's what you did. All right? And so, Justice, for 7, 8, 9, this would be more like 10, 11, 12, where you said this, you could do this.
Yeah.
So this 2 here represents what?
Your starting point.
Starting point, 0, 2. So we come over here and we put a dot on our starting point.
Yep. Down 1 over 2.
Then this is rise over run. So we go down 1 over 2.
Yeah.
Down 1 over 2.
Yeah, like that's easy.
Easy. Okay, Emilio, that's what you did, right? Taryn, you did the whole thing. All right, now let's come back over to this. Let me rewrite it again. Now, Sydney, pay careful attention to this, and Emilio, you too, because this is the new thing.
I vaguely remember, like, kind of.
We did it last year. I don't know if I talked about the beginning of this year. Did we do it? Maybe we did.
Yeah, this is my stuff right here.
We
I
said
don't like this one.
we said put a 0 here, 0 here. Now, I think if you give it a chance, you may learn to like it. Now, I think what you like about this is you know the process. You know exactly what to do. You can do it. It may take a little longer, but that's fine with you. I don't have a problem with that. What we said here is if you put a 0 in for x and a 0 in for y, that's the x and the y intercept, it's going to give you 2 points, which is enough to do your line. Usually we like 4, but in this method we're allowed 2. That's good enough. So, Emilio, if I put a 0 in for x, so Sydney, if I put a 0 in for x right here, everybody look at me. If I put a 0 in for this x, it's like it disappears, right? If I put a 0 for x, it disappears. So what Justin's talking about, what I often do in these problems, I put a 0 in for x, I just put my hand over it.
Okay. Yeah, I remember.
Look what we got left. We got that. Well, what's that mean? Y equals 2. Did you do this method? Did you do the zeros? Okay. So y is a 2. So all you do, so you just divide. It's like a little wall problem. Now, if you want to rewrite it over here, that's fine. But usually if you just put your hand over it, you can see it.
Oh, yeah, I remember these.
Remember that?
I put my thumb over here.
Yeah. So you get that. So now all you do is divide by 2. So what you get is y equals 2. Now we're going to put a 0 in for y. So that's going to make that disappear. Right? Put a 0 for y, that disappears. What do you got left? You got x equals 4. Right? So that's a 4. X is a 4. So now you just plot those 2 points.
Divide by both of the numbers, is that what it is? Like, divide by x and y, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm going to be careful about that. Yeah, I mean, that's essentially what happens. Because when you put a 0 for x, that's gone. And then, yes, you're going to, what you'll be left with, you'll end up dividing, right? And when you put a 0 for y, that's gone, you end up dividing.
Because that's how I was wondering how you got the 4, but...
yeah, because there's nothing to divide, really. It's just x equals 4.
Yeah.
If there had been a number in front of there, then we could divide it.
Yeah, like if it was like 3x.
3x or something. Yeah, you might have got a fraction. Sometimes you get a fraction on those. That's just the way it works. So we go here and we take 0, 2, which would be this point here. And we do 4, 0, which would be this point here. And there's your line, same line. Now that was faster because you didn't have to do all this stuff. Right? But that's fine. It's not a race. Whatever. I want you to get the right line. Okay? So here's what number 2 should look like. Either way you do it. So, now, notice the 2 points, Emilio, that they gave. They did it this 0, 0 way, right? The 0 way. So, if you put a 0 in for x, cover that up. Now, do your divide thing. What do you get?
Negative, or 3.
It'd be positive 3,
yeah.
right? So, there's 0, 3, right? We put a 0 in for y.
-2.
You would divide by 3, you get -2, so there's -2, 0. Now, I think you should, I really think at the least, you should write that little table so you don't mix up which one's which.
Yeah, like, I remember these now,
Yeah.
so, like, I can just...
Yeah, you should, you should at least write, okay, why is that doing that?
Oh.
Spinning wheel of death. There we go. You should at least write the 0 here and the 0 here, so you make sure you get the points in the right place. Okay? All right. So that's it. So if you have one that look, and the downside to method number 3, okay, that's bad. Big hole. Look at that. Magically it comes back. The downside to method 3 is it only works if they look a special way, right? If you've got the X and the Y, all the, if they're messed up at all. Because sometimes, to be honest, in Algebra 1 class, we won't do many of these. But sometimes you get a problem that looks like this. Now, what method would you use for that? The Y is not by itself. And it doesn't look like the one where you can just cover the X and the Y, does it? It's kind of a whole mixture. What you'd have to do here is, yeah, you'd have to do this one. It's probably best to get the Y by itself because it's all messed up anyway. You're gonna have to distribute. You're gonna have to combine some things. Since you're doing all that, you might as well just get the Y by itself. So that's why I like, number 2 where you have to get the Y by itself. That one works in all kinds of cases, right? So anyway, but these special ones that look like this, method 3 works pretty good. Okay, there's number 3. Now, I just want you to check your answers at this point. Okay, let's just see if we got the right graphs. Here's number 4. I don't care what method you used. Here's what number 4 should look like. Kind of goes down like that. Here's number 5. Okay, here's number 6. All right, now, okay, justice to your question. You've waited patiently. This is a very simple answer to your question. But when the Y is by itself, then there's no doubt the best method is number 2. I mean, it's just a no-brainer, right? That's the starting point and the rise over run, right? So I'm going to take, and these things are disappearing. Okay, this is really slowing down. Add the opposite. So this point right here is what? What's it? That's 0, -3. So there's my starting point right there, right? And then what about the number in front of the X? We put a 1 there, and we put a 1 under it. In other words, the number in front of the X's slope, we want it to be rise over run. We want it to be a fraction. Well, any number can be a fraction. Just stick a 1 under it.
All right. Oh, I got you.
See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's an easy fix. So now what are you going to do? So what's this mean? Rise over run? That just means rise 1, run 1. Now somebody in the other class brought up this point of confusion, and I hadn't really thought about it, but I thought they had a really good point. When they went to plot their starting point, they were putting it the wrong place. Instead of going 0, -3, they went over here to this point. And what's wrong with going over here? That's the wrong place. That's this point, isn't it? Well, here's where they were confusing. When we do rise over run, we go up first, right? And then we go over, up, over. What do you do when you're plotting this point? You go over first, right? I mean, because this means 0, right? When you plot a point, you always do the X first, right? So the first number is across, and then the second number is down, right? So if I told you to plot the point, if I just told you to plot the point 2, 4, tell me where you would go.
Over 2.
You'd go over 2, up 4, right? But if it's rise over run, we do what first? We go rise and then we run. And so they were getting confused between those two, right? And I hadn't really thought of that. So you do have to keep those straight. If you're going to plot the point 2, 4, that means 2 over 4 up. But if you're doing rise over run, we do rise, then we do run. It doesn't matter. You could do the bottom first. You could do run and then rise if you wanted to. All right. So that was interesting. Maybe some of you have that confusion. So Justice, over here, you're going to do what?
Oh, yeah, you start 4. Or divide by 2.
You're going to start, no.
Yeah, I got you.
No divide. Start at 4. There's your starting point.
Rise over run on your -2.
So what do you mean?
Down 2, right 1.
Yeah, just going to stick a 1 under that. So it's going to be down 2, right 1, down 2, right 1, down 2, right 1. Okay? Now, somebody had this question then on number 11. What about that negative in front of the 1/4? What do we do with that? Where do we put that negative? Our starting point clearly is here at 3. Okay, so there's our starting point. We usually put it on the top, don't we? But you could put it either place, right? So you could take that negative and put it on top. So you go down 1 over 4, but then you run out of room. So we said go up 1 left 4, and you know what that would be like? That would be if you put the negative down the bottom. It doesn't really matter. If you want to put the negative on the bottom, this would mean up 1 and then left 4. So sometimes you have to go backwards anyway, right? Because you run out of space. But there's your line. Then you connect. Okay? So, all right. And then this is another one that it wasn't on your homework, I don't think. But what if you had y equals 2/3 x? What if you had to graph that thing?
Wouldn't it just be a straight up and down?
No.
I don't know.
What's missing there? There's no starting point. It's y equals 2/3 x plus what? What's your starting point? 0. Sometimes you have a starting point of 0, right? So we always talk about y equals mx plus b, right? Y equals mx plus b. Well, if there's no plus b, it's a 0. So your starting point's a 0. So it is possible to have a starting point of 0. And then you would go where from there? Up 2 over 3. Up 2 over 3, right? There'd be your line. Okay. All right. So you've got this nice to do on those first ones, but it wouldn't have been necessary. You could have gotten the y by itself. If you get the y by itself, then it's mostly about starting point and rise over 1. All right. Another thing is, when we get to the new part in chapter 12, most of the ones we do will be the y's already by itself. So maybe we're going on to some harder ones that is necessary for the new stuff we do, but you know what? We need to be able to do that. We're capable of that. We need to be able to do that. Now, this is not going to take you very long. You guys shorten day. Well, we'll just do some. We'll just focus on y by itself. Notice on these, the y is by itself. Okay? So this is, let's go ahead and just graph those now. I think the directions are that when you extend your line, it should cross out one of the letters. And then that's the letter that you go and print down in the box below. I don't think it should. Oh yeah, x is just the x-axis. It doesn't. It's yeah, x and y are just the axis. Those don't count. It's the letters that are outside the box, outside the grid. Those are the ones that matter.
you want yesterday, something like that.
Yeah.